I'm Joel H. Brewster, and I'm no stranger to horror. And this is a podcast about the big and the small of the genre, where I cover all the things to make you go from being a casual horror fan to a full-blown horror film fanatic like myself. Today is a very special day. We're talking about a movie that has horror aspects. It's not quite a horror movie, but I will get into that in one moment here. With me today, I have Kevin L. Martin Jr., who is a photographer, filmmaker, writer, podcast producer, teacher, and a list of of other things that we'll get into. He's been on my other episode, the Get Out episode. He's also he also owns the network that I produce on, which is a great network full of other podcasts, and we'll get into that as well. Kevin, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great. So it's been pretty excited to be here. Thanks for having me back.
Yeah, you're welcome. We talk all the time, and I'm very excited to have you back in this concept, especially for the movie we're going to cover, which I should introduce. The movie we're going to cover today is The Batman, the most recent one with Robert Pattinson, and we will break down why we think this has some horror aspects. But before we do that, Kevin, how has the post-political life been?
It's been good. I mean, it's I have a lot of people asking me, why I'm not, particularly running again and stuff like that. But it's been very, very busy. It's a lot of good things have happened, especially into 2022. So I'm very, very excited. But it's been overwhelming in the best way possible.
That's awesome to hear. I like to hear that because I feel like everyone right now is kind of overwhelmed in different ways. But yeah. I like to hear that you're having that things are going your way right now because I know how hard you work and you deserve it. So I'm happy to hear that.
I appreciate that. I appreciate that a lot. You have no idea.
Oh. I'll just get you to briefly reintroduce yourself again, though, because just in case anyone didn't hear the previous episode, which I will link. But yeah, please reintroduce yourself.
So my name is Kevin L. Martin. Everyone calls me KL Martin. I am a filmmaker, professional screenwriter, professional analog photographer, do a lot of stuff for Polaroid. I also teach screenwriting, and I produce a number of podcasts, and that is under the kevinlmartin.com productions. And I'm from New Jersey. I like long walks on the beach. No, I am, and I'm 6'11". I'm a retired professional basketball player. I did that for roughly 14 years. It's been all art ever since. And I've been very lucky to have a great group of community, a group of friends, a support system that's kind of pushed me forward. And it's really all I do. So I'm really excited about it.
Yeah, that's awesome. It's even from that, I'm sure listeners can imagine how much work that is. And this man works even harder than you can imagine for all those different titles. It's inspiring, but it's always great to hear, especially with the number of different podcasts you have on your network as well. Has been great to see, and the community that you've built from that.
It's been great. We're actually probably at the end of this month, we'll have 6 more.
Oh, wow.
It's gone really well. It's kind of an open door for people who, want that home for a specific genre. And hopefully by the end of this year, just have different channels referring to different, whether it's horror or whether it's comedy, just having creatives who are talkative about what they do because they love what they do and sharing that passion with people and kind of helping them grow, from a producer standpoint and from a network standpoint. So it's bbeen really great.
Yeah. And I feel like that's what we have in common is we like to introduce people to other people and collaborate in that way. And it's always refreshing. That's one thing I like about, I'd say how we view the internet, right? It's just a non-toxic way to just really communicate with people from all over the world and get them into it.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, art is a collaborative thing. And I feel like I feel the world promotes it in a different way, but realistically at its nitty gritty, getting to the next level, everything is really a collaborative thing. You finding one person who's good at one thing and one person who's not as good as you are at something else, and you bring them along, you guys form that bond, that collective, and you try to move forward together. And that I feel like, from a guy who's had his career wrapped around the team-oriented thing, that teamwork, that collaboration is how you win. You win together. You win with humility. You win with teamwork and understanding and passion. And I think that works there.
It's interesting you brought up the teamwork aspect because from your sports background as well. How does it feel to go from being on a team to going into more of a coaching position? Because that's what you kind of are now, right? You're like a coach to many of us, myself included, in a number of different ways. But a lot of the people you work with? Is it, do you feel like you picked a lot of that from the team environment of?
Absolutely. It's one of those things where when I was playing, I used to tell people, I wouldn't coach because in my head, I didn't want to coach a team when I thought I could still play. Mm-hmm. I felt like it was right. Like if I was coaching young kids, it'd be like, oh, if you don't know how to do this, I'll show you, but that doesn't help them. Mm-hmm. And then as I got older, when you're trying, I started getting further along in film, coaching kind of took a different aspect of, I feel like it's my obligation to pull new people into this with me, or show them how to get to this point that I basically sort of built out of nothing. And I feel like I'm obligated to say, hey, look, you're really good at what you do. I'm really good at what I do. Let's come together. Let's drag a few people with us. And that's always been my thing. I really don't believe someone should do something they don't like for the rest of their lives if they're good at something they love. And we find a way to make sure that's all they do. So coaching really took a different aspect of, let me bring as many people with me and show you how to do this. So then we as a team could move forward. And I like that aspect of coaching a lot. It's just, you'd be surprised. You make some great friends. You learn stuff. You get better at things, and you realize the deficiencies you had that might have been holding you back. And that everyone has their role and knows what those roles are. And I mean, that's my favorite part of coaching. When that all comes together, it comes together in an amazing way.
Yeah, and I feel that there's definitely a correlation between that and going into like film and photography, right? Because there's a lot of collaboration from a lot of your work I see in that way. It's just very a collaborative art in that sense too.
Exactly. It's really hard to do a lot of this alone. I mean, as a screenwriter, you can do so much, but then you want to get it made, and, finding that money and finding the ability and the production to do so is not easy, but doing it on your own is not easy either. It's actually easier to find people who, I do cinematography, and I'm a screenwriter, but maybe I don't want to do cinematography anymore. Someone else can, and someone's a gaffer, or someone's another writer who writes a genre better than you. Mm-hmm. And trying to put that all together on your own it's hard. It's nigh impossible. And, that's the important aspect. It really wraps around humility of knowing I can't do this, but someone else can. Let me work with this person to either get better at it and then we move forward, or he can do it and I can do it with them or her. And I think there's not a lot of that in the world anymore, but when you do find it in pockets, those people are pretty successful.
I agree. And I feel that a lot of it in film now, that's why there's a lot of nepotism in film, right? Because they already have the people already lined up, right? If your father's a producer, then you've already got a producer. If your mother's an actor that has a connection to an agent, there's a lot of that.
Someone went to film school, and like I used to tell students, they were like, hey, did you go to film school? So absolutely not. But there are people who I know who went to film school that got opportunities because they went to film school. They didn't necessarily do anything or do well in the film school, but they knew the guy who they were students with or classmates with, and they get that opportunity. And I've watched that. I've beaten that, but I've also watched it a lot. And that's why it came down to, all right, I'm going to bring as many people who, like me, don't have anyone, in the industry to start, or maybe they are as far along as I am. But you know what? We don't have the people who are just going to throw us the money or the opportunity. But with our powers combined, like we're Captain Planet, we're gonna this is a forward motion that we can do. We can all go together and kind of blow nepotism out of the water. And I've seen it happen, and it works.
Yeah, I agree. And I feel that with social media, Instagram, it's the connections you can make through like the funniest things, like through sharing memes or like whatever that way, right? Or just like a liked interest that way. It's just how you can make connections now, because the world is all very connected in that sense, which is a lot different than it would have been 10 years ago, 15 years ago or so. So you make a lot of great art.
And I think realistically, the pandemic has sort of sped that along.
Absolutely.
You've got a lot of people who aren't necessarily social. A lot of people who aren't great in face-to-face conversations and confrontations. And now you have people who can talk to someone on the computer, and maybe they don't want to have to be around 100 people, but they can have face-to-face conversations. I think that has it's kind of spread out. It used to be to the poles of New York and Atlanta and LA. And now with the advent of Zoom and now you can do pitch. I've done 4 pitches online via Zoom in the last month and a half. And you get to a point where people know you. They may not know you in person, but they know you by face. And you're like, well, this is incredible. So there's a lot of talent out there that's now, uninhibited by their social angst or their social anxiety or not having the right connections. It helps that you have good places like Coverfly. Coverfly is amazing. Stage 32 and those guys. And then you add the virtual aspect. And now all of a sudden you don't have to be flown out to LA to get a pitch. You might be in your living room wearing half a suit in Albuquerque pitching to someone in New York. And I think that's opened the gates wide open, like just blew them off the hinges, actually.
Yeah, I agree. And to go back to what you were originally saying about the pandemic, I feel that over the pandemic for myself, like West Coast Strange was like, I made friends through West Coast Strange over the pandemic online. Mm-hmm. And I really am thankful for all like the friends I've made over the internet, yourself included, pretty much during the pandemic. And I remember originally when I started the blog, I was like, oh, okay, I'll have this blog. I'll sell some merch. This is how I'll make money. And now the blog exists for like internet friends I've made that like comments. I've just expanded from there. And I like that aspect of it. I'm like, it's corny to say, but it's the friends along the way thing that happened to me, right? I've made so many friends through this. And I love the connection through social media because of that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think realistically, and I said this to my fiance a while ago, realistically, I think what happens here, like myself and you and Anya and other people like it, I genuinely feel like we're actually using the internet the right way. Like, like we're using the expressed purpose of what the internet was supposed to be done instead of the stuff that happens on the out fringes that are now a little bit more normal. Mm-hmm. I feel like we are doing exactly what the internet was meant to do, which is to connect people from different places and give that person the ability to know certain things and use that knowledge to make themselves better or to make someone else better. Mm-hmm. Now it sounds super utopian to even think that's a thing, but I think that's why I'm so confident in some of the stuff that we're probably gonna do together, because we're doing this for the right reasons. We're doing this for the purpose of moving forward together in particular aspects, and I think that makes the internet actually worthy of staying on. If you're using it in the right way, of course.
Yeah, and I think that. Because I'm currently in digital marketing right now. And I really think that the aspect of how people look at even social media marketing and talking to people on the internet, I think people just see like, oh, this person has, like, for my example, they have like 1,300 followers, right? This person has 1 million followers. But they never really look at, for instance, in my example, the way I always look at it for like branching out and talking to people is like, I may have like just over 1,300 followers, which isn't that much in the grand scheme of things. But when you think of like, yeah, but at the same time, I've made friends with a certain number of my followers and they'll share my stuff because I share their stuff. So really, and those numbers are never really equated because I feel like people aren't looking at the internet the right way still. They're still looking at like the million, like the people that have 1 million followers because they're doing whatever, when really there's a lot of community built from like people with like smaller accounts that are connecting with people and willing to share like the right way. And that kind of builds like what you're saying in the utopian society, which I think is going to be more looked at, because I feel like the pandemic has really opened that up too.
Yeah. Pandemic. I mean, I know there's a ton of negatives to it, but it happened in the 20s and 30s, I believe, with like, when the Spanish flu hit and all this other stuff. And then there was this renaissance of just new ideas and people just, because it opens the door, the fear of what you need to do to get to certain things that seemed unattainable are no longer unattainable. Even if you want to do the project yourself, these are realistic things. It opens up investors. There are people who are interested in your projects who want to do a GoFundMe it's all really a kind of a trickle down of this is what the internet was built for. It got messed up in the middle. And now your average, filmmaker, your average screenwriter, your average entrepreneur can do things with people from the other side of the planet. And I think the pandemic has solidified what this world, especially from an art standpoint, solidify what this world is going to look like as an artist in any medium or discipline, and how far it can go. It can go as far as you want it to if you're willing to kind of dig your heels into the dirt and push off and go.
Yeah, and I feel to add to that, I feel that since now that we're in the more pandemic phase, we're craving more entertainment too for artists. So they're looking for like new ideas and everything, which I think, to roll into the movie here, I think that a lot of why this movie worked for both of us was it just felt like a refreshing new idea after we were just getting a lot of the same coming from like the post-pandemic. I feel like this was a newer idea, a newer take on we've seen other darker Batman movies, but the way they did this one was just, it felt like a newer story in that way. It felt bolder, and I like bold ideas. I've seen a lot of bold ideas from movies that came out during the pandemic, and I've enjoyed that.
And I think one of the things that really jumps out to me, I love Marvel, and I've always loved DC. And the thing what happens with DC sometimes is DC, they don't let the inmates run the asylum, if that makes any sense, in the sense of you have guys, when that moment comes and you see these boardrooms and these people, these are not artistic people who are suits, who are just seeing the money. They have a job to do. They're going to produce it, and they're all this other stuff. And the problem is, after a while, they get involved in stuff that they probably were never really interested in. I feel like DC allows a lot of those money guys to invest in or be involved in a writing way or in a creative way with things that they weren't comic book kids. They weren't, carrying comic books around in their plastic envelopes with them everywhere, even though they haven't read them at all. Like they weren't into Batman. And I bring that up because Matt Reeves clearly is about the source material.
100%. Yes.
It was like watching a comic book kid get a lot of money, get a bunch of graphic artists who've made graphic novels and said, let's make this as real as possible. And it was stunning. It was stunning on a million different levels. But like watching DC hopefully not mess this up, but watching DC let the artist do what they do and the writer and the director do what they do because they care for the source material. Realistically, it's not a coincidence that these movies, the Joker, Batman, the Suicide Squad, the second one, Peacemaker, those are all standalone or spinoffs of things that the person who wrote them or directed them or both cares about the source material. Yep. And that is a huge difference. It's a giant difference.
Yeah, I absolutely just going to get into those. I'm going to say to the people listening, from this point further, it's going to be spoilers because we're going to dive deep into this movie. So from this point further, there is going to be spoilers. Please go see the movie, then come back to this podcast. Before I get to the spoilers aspect, another movie to add to that, I feel like the difference between Justice League and the Justice League, the Snyderverse, was just like, hey, here's all the things you can actually do. Like if you just give someone free reign and just the amount of story you can go into and the artistic nature of the shots and a lot of the things that went into this. And I can understand the fear they have because a lot of the things, and no disrespect to Marvel, but like a lot of the things from the Disney Marvel side is it kind of is getting kind of conveyor beltish now. Yeah. They are kind of putting it out. It's like I've been calling it the Marvel cameo universe now because every movie is just like cameos now of nostalgia, which wasn't like that originally. Like it didn't like, you know what I mean? Captain America Winter Soldier is my favorite MCU movie. Didn't have the cameos. It had a strong story arc like that. But the cameo movies have really worked out, obviously, and they make money. But I just feel that, and there's been great cameos, obviously, too. Yeah. But I feel that it's such a flex that the last Batman movie and the last Joker movie were so grounded, and they just like obviously didn't cost nearly as much money. I mean, the Batman movie did, but like not nearly as much money as like your average Marvel movie. And they just have done so well.
The issue with Marvel is something that we've been invested in this from the first Iron Man. And the thing is that we're at the cameo stage because nostalgia wins no matter what. This is why you see people remake all these movies and reboot them, and sometimes they should. Most times they shouldn't. Most times they should just leave well enough alone. But you're at the cameo stage because now they're trying to use the cameo stage to show you, okay, at some point you're not going to see these people anymore, and this is going to be a new group of Avengers or a new hero, and that's kind of the offshoot of consistently building a universe that has basically now we're phase 4, where we're coming. We chased the tail, we caught the tail, and now there's a new group of things that we're going to see until we chase that tail. Whereas with DC, I was cool with the Justice League. I was cool with. The problem was DC had no universe. They said they had a universe, but there was really no universe.
No,
realistically, if you really think about it, and I blew a friend's mind saying this to him. If you think about it, the DCU is about 10% other characters not named Superman or Batman. They have given us, well, between the two of them, almost 15 to 20 movies between the 89 or 80, 87 and recently. They've all been Batman and Superman. It took them years to get to the point of even putting Wonder Woman up there.
Oh, yeah.
And that's where they have this opportunity here, which I still think that they're going to ruin with the Flash. I don't know how they're going to ruin it, but they're going to ruin it with the Flash. But they have an opportunity here to go in the direction that, for the most part, Zack Snyder was like, hey, we can go darker and do this. The difference is Matt Reeves took his idea and it's not even a comparable thing. Like what Zack Snyder was trying to do versus what Matt Reeves did is astounding.
Absolutely.
And I think DC needs to be like, you know what? Let's lean into this. Let's keep it going. And I think that's what they're going to do. And I think they're going to do that in a way that's going to involve streaming and their other movies. And I don't know what The Flash is going to do. I have no clue. The Flash is an enigma to me, but the Batman is the best DC movie. And I'm a Batman 89 fan. Not only is it the best Batman movie, it is easily the best DC movie ever made.
Yeah, it's my favorite DC movie ever made, outside of like not counting animated movies, but like even then it's just, there's just so much of it that really worked for me. The opening scene, this is the scene when I knew I was in. When it opened with the Riddler killing the guy in the house, politician in his house, and you just see behind him, you just see the glasses silhouette of his head before he goes towards the guy. I was like, I'm pretty much in. And then he attacks the guy. I was like, oh, I'm pretty much in. And then when you hear Batman narrate, it's Halloween night, I was like, I'm 100% in. No matter what happens from this point of the movie, I'm in. You got me. It's Halloween night. It's raining. They show all the different things of Gotham. Then they show the bat symbol, and then they show the shadows. And he can
that's what got me.
I was like, what?
That's what got me. Where, first of all, I'm a big Batman, Zero, Batman Year One fan. Long Halloween, like that's Detective Comics stuff.
Yes.
Like this is Batman with not a lot of gadgets. Batman is going there, brute strength, getting beat, but beating people up.
Yes.
And watching that opening sequence of is he in the dark and these guys just taking off and running and getting hit by a car and freaking out because they don't, he's just there. And I remember I was in, and then I was kind of mad because they showed it in the trailer, and then you watch the full scene of him hitting that clown, the group of clowns, the guys with the clown makeup, and really just beating the hell out of them. And I go, this is it. This is the Batman that I've waited my entire life for.
Yes.
The Detective Comics Year One Long Halloween Batman. And that guy is brutal.
Yeah, they leaned so heavily in, and this is where I think Halloween is, because you got to think of this. Like, I don't feel like the upper class Hollywood, whatever, tries to steer away from horror. Like horror doesn't make money. Like horror isn't popular, and this is where Matt Reeves. leaned so far into horror aspect outside of the Riddler. He leaned into and made Batman out to be like Michael Myers. Like this was, he was the scariest man alive in this scene.
Exactly.
And my dad pointed out too that like my dad's like favorite scene, because I went and saw it with my dad, and his favorite scene was just the sound of Batman's boots. They did so many times. The sound of his boots hitting the rain. I was like, that sound design. I was like, this is out of control.
The sound design in this movie, between that and the composition of just the music, it was like
insane.
It's hard to believe you had, the Batman theme song has been sort of the same / reinvented a little bit here and there. Mm-hmm. But for them to come in, it gave me Imperial, March, Star Wars vibes. Yes. And then when I'm thinking about it, all of a sudden it just turns a corner. I'm like, this is insane. And to go into like how he's the boogeyman. He was the boogeyman, but like not like the boogeyman, I'm scared of the boogie. No, boogeyman, like the boogeyman's coming out of the dark. If you see him, it's over. Yeah. It kind of answers the memes where they used to make fun of Batman, like Batman, comes and stops a bank robbery, and you're just you were just a side thug that is only trying to support his kids, and you get your face caved in. Yeah. That's Batman. That's the original Batman. And watching them do that, the sound design, watching him, and kudos to Paul. I don't know why I can't think of his name right now.
Paul Dano.
Oh my God! Listen, they went 7. They went straight 7 with the Riddler. Yes. And I jokingly said to somebody, the Riddler that they made is the Riddler if they had let Jim Carrey do it after number 23. That's the Riddler. That's the Riddler I bet you Jim Carrey would have loved to have done. Instead of, he went and grabbed the money, God bless him. He was still psychotic in that movie, but nowhere near. Paul Dano was incredible. He was, I think, from the moment he took the tape and he did that, I jumped like, oh wait, this guy's an actual he's psychotic. He's a killer. And I said to myself, and then I ended up typing this, you really realize the state of society by how realistic these villains are. Mm-hmm. And I mean, Paul Dano was the Riddler was a 4chan guy. Okay. He's dark web, like crazy stuff. And that's just his support system. But the thing is, that's believable. Mm-hmm. He wasn't superhuman. He's incredibly smart, but that's believable. And that is where, like, when he killed that guy with the what do you call it? I think it was the carpet lifter.
Yeah. Carpet lifter.
And all I could think of is, man, every minute, every section of this kill ends up coming back at the end as being the most important. What he killed him with, how he killed him, and it's just fantastic how he portrayed the Riddler. Oh yeah, it's nonstop.
The noir aspect of this whole movie was insane. And one thing they did was for an ensemble cast, because usually a lot of these superhero movies now have so many different characters from the comics to just kind of get you all hooked in. But they actually had a movie that if you removed any one of the characters, the story just went there. They could be the lead character. They actually all were the lead character in such a way. Even Catwoman's story by itself, I would have watched that. The whole Falcone being her dad, her wanting to get like revenge for her friend. I would have watched that.
As a standalone, 100%.
Absolutely. Even Falcone's like story too, as like a mob boss, and like him like running the 40 below and penguins. Jesus.
First of all, every time they tell me it's Colin Farrell, I'm like, that's insane.
Yeah, he's heading towards GOAT status for that.
He is knocking on that door. Like it's like that is full body transformation. He sounded more Gotham, New York, Chicagoan than any people. There's a lot of people that I know that don't sound anything like that, and he crushed it. It was insane. It just every aspect of this movie really kind of oozed a guy who clearly loves Batman.
Yeah. Colin Farrell called Batman sweetheart upon the first meeting, and I was like, this guy is the man. Like he's the man. You don't care. This guy,
you don't give a damn. Like, and he's got it was a team. You could tell that Matt Reeves loves Robert Pattinson loves this character. And I think it's out of exhaustion because realistically, the only good Batman, like if you don't count 89, there hasn't been a good Batman non-animated in quite some time. and except for the trilogy.
Yes.
And the trilogy was all you had to stand on. So realistically, every time they brought Batman in, they had to compare them to Chris Nolan's trilogy. And the difference between that is the trilogy, they left Chris Nolan alone. When they made Wonder Woman, they left Patty Jenkins alone. They left her alone to do her thing. You can always tell when DC gets involved in these things. And you could tell between the Joker and Batman, they were just like, do what you do and let's see what happens. And that was incredible. I could pick out, I'm going to go see it again.
Oh, I'm going to definitely go see it again. I have a theory here. I have a theory about what Warner Brothers did with this. It feels like, and if anyone's listening from Warner Brothers and they hear this is just a theory. I don't know. I don't know an inside person, but it feels like they made this movie kind of in spite of Zack Snyder, like in a sense of like, hey, go do whatever you want. We're dealing with Snyder fans. We need this to do well. And then also the Flash movie is going to erase the rest of your universe. Okay, now we have a new fresh start. That's kind of what it feels like between this and that. And I hope they don't connect them.
I'm 100% in favor of that theory. It makes sense. First of all, I mean, we're both on Twitter and you see restore the Snyderverse, restore the Snyderverse. Listen, the Snyderverse isn't coming back. That ship has sailed. They've locked that door. That Zack Snyder is not walking through that door. It's just not happening. And there's a lot of people who want that. But now you got guys who are about the Snyderverse hating on the Batman, but they're getting drowned out by 90. Well, I think it got an A- on CineScore. It's like a 90% on Rotten Tomatoes, maybe 85.
10 out of 10 on IGN, which was a huge one too.
Yeah, 10 out of 10. They're talking Oscars for almost every aspect of this movie. And that is the other thing that these movies, whether it's Logan or Joker or the Batman, they have made comic book movies that suddenly you have to start looking at them going, man, that was an incredible cinematic movie.
Yes.
Like Marvel doesn't have a ton of those and they don't really aim to. I mean, they got Disney money so they can do what they want. But realistically, if you look at it, they are making the Oscar voters look at Robert Pattinson, who legitimately is well on his way to getting the GOAT status eventually. He's 100%. Had some incredible movies. But for him to bring his pedigree like Christian Bale did and show I can one-up this, the thing is that this is more cinematic, if you can believe, and I said to someone, more cinematic than the Dark Knight trilogy. It's way more cinematic.
Yeah, I agree. And I think that he beats out Christopher Nolan. I think that here's another thing I think that he wins on in a couple of different regards. Better Batman voice. Small thing, but it's
small
there.
Thing, but big. Yeah, it's there. That is
and
true.
The action overall, like as like Nolan, I don't know what's going on with Nolan. Like Nolan's like a near perfect director. His fight scenes aren't that strong for whatever reason. Like, I
didn't even think about that. But if I look back at it, you're not wrong. I know he focuses on a lot of other things, but his fight scenes have been. I don't know. They're inconsistent for sure.
So inconsistent. Inception has its best fight scenes, and then like I think like maybe 2 fight scenes in the Tenet. But like outside of that, The Dark Knight, love that movie. I have a Dark Knight tattoo on my arm. Dark Knight fan here. But the one thing that I have to give it that's like if you watch the opening scene where I'm not wearing hockey pads scene, whatever, like Batman's fighting in that, like physical fighting is just like not good. It's just it's not even dated. It was like. I don't know. I think we were so excited when we first saw it, like then it was like, oh, it doesn't really matter. But like now, especially we've seen good like action movies. We've seen how John Wick trying to change the game with this. It's different, right? And I thought this nailed the fight scenes.
And you look back at it, and so on one of the short films I have coming up, my cinematographer and I, we were gushing over some of the fight scenes and how they were lighting the thing. But like the one scene. I will watch this fight scene 100 times over. Is that hallway where they were only lighting it with muzzle flash.
Oh,
I was in the movie theater screaming.
I was losing my mind.
Losing my mind. It was one of those things where I wish, it was the only time I wish this was streaming because I would go back and watch it again. They lit that fight scene and they showed you everything you need to know. It was incredible. It was, I wanted to go back and go, how I mean, I know how, but I want to know how.
Yes.
Like this is insane. Like, you lit a fight scene that was better than 90% of the fight scenes I've seen in the past half decade with muzzle flash that was probably no more than a minute and a half.
Yes.
And it was just so much of this movie, you could tell someone took great care with every aspect of it, like as if most productions do. But no, this is a guy with an actor and actors who said, you know what, we love this character. So let's make this the best we can possibly do and beyond that. And they did it.
And the two things that they made a character in this that I feel like other Batman movies haven't really done as well. They made Gotham definitely a living, breathing character, and they made Darkness like a living, breathing character, which was such a great aspect. Like the car scene too. That car scene with the rev up of the engine, I was like, that's okay. You can't even argue on like not giving this movie some Oscar attention next year, because that car scene, the revving up, was insane. And that was another scene of Darkness, right? Where it's just like dark, and then you see the car engine light up and everyone turns to it. And I was like, that is the coolest introduction to the car. Haven't seen before yet.
That might have been my favorite Batmobile. Like, that was insane. And that car chase scene, listen, I've watched, unfortunately, all 9 of the Fast and Furious scenes. And that car chase was it was dope. It was just so good. And watching Pattinson go through the motions of driving, but also keeping his his acting is superb to begin with. But it's just watching Batman, you really watch what he's doing as he's driving and he's making these decisions, but his eye acting is insane. And it's crazy how they made those things. It felt like it was him, the Penguin, in the car. There was him, the Penguin. And then going back to the Gotham aspect, here's the thing. Gotham is its own character. And, people who love Batman know how important it is to get Gotham right.
Yes.
And Gotham, in my head, has always been New York meets Chicago. And meets St. Patrick's Cathedral. Like it's this meshing of all these styles coming into one town. And realistically, this is the most comic book accurate Batman / Gotham I've ever seen. It was incredible.
Yeah,
it has to be. I will go back and watch every other Batman, even the Joel Schumacher stuff, and sit there and go, there's never been a better looking Gotham. It's just not even close, unless it was animated. And that goes back to me saying about the artist. It feels like they went and found the artist who did the graphic design or graphic arts for the graphic novel for Frank Miller and Batman Year One and all this. And they said, how are we going to do this? And they did it they did it superbly. And it was incredible. When they did that shot above the city when the water was rushing in, I looked and I go, this is Gotham. That is Gotham. That is more Gotham than any Gotham has ever been Gotham.
Oh, and shooting 90% of the movie at night and like with it raining was insane. And also the choice to have it just be a Batman movie, not a Bruce Wayne and what's going on. It was a Batman movie. Like Pattinson actually decided, hey, guess what? I'll sign on to be 90% in the mask, 90% in costume. I was like, what actor's doing that right now? You got Hugo Weaving and him. That's it.
That's it.
100%. Those are two DC movies, right? Those are the only times where I've seen a superhero in that much costume throughout the thing, like mask on, not like on. Do you know what I mean? Like I'm sure the studio pushed to have him like Bruce Wayne on the poster, which is just not even accurate. Just like it's mask on him like the whole time, and no one found out who he was. I loved that. I love that aspect. That Catwoman, he didn't go, "Hey, Catwoman, I'm actually Bruce Wayne." Hey, Commissioner, I'm actually Bruce Wayne, like how that always happens in superhero movies. No one really found out who he was, and I loved that aspect too.
That interrogation scene with Paul Dano and watching him say, and you're sitting there going, wait, does he know it's Bruce Wayne? And I'm thinking of that scene with Jim Carrey and how he went crazy and he got real goofy. But watching Paul Dano go through the motions of Bruce Wayne, but realizing. And then Pattinson's Batman realizing, wait a minute, he doesn't know who this is.
Yeah.
He doesn't know it's me. And the climax of that, the build up to, oh my God, this guy clearly knows who he is. And then you get to the point, he goes, oh, he doesn't.
Yes.
He doesn't. He's just been doing this from the top of his head. and accidentally stumbled. He's so smart, he stumbled upon the identity and didn't even think he did or realized it. And that interrogation scene alone is an Oscar clip for at least one of them.
That's a masterclass of writing. That honestly was. That was like an absolute masterclass. Because I'm like, that had me. I was like, oh yeah, he knows. He knows. And the way they build it up with the pictures and everything, right? When they pictures before and showing that, I was like, okay, well, this is just a masterclass. You're just showing off at this point. And I'm like, this is deep into the movie. I was like, wow. How do you make a 3-hour movie where I'm still going? I'm like, I do another 3 hours. What do you got? I got time. Like, what's going on?
Like I'm saying, like, well, if you're gonna do a sequel, let's just do it right now. Let's just it was just brilliant writing, brilliant cinematography. It was faithful to the faithful is not even doing it enough. It was such, and it wasn't even an homage, because the homage is not. It was just the most accurate comic book depiction of Batman in the entirety of Batman, and there's a lot, and I've seen a lot. I love, the Dark Knight trilogy. I love it. And at that point, it was, a pretty accurate Batman, even though to me, it was more of an accurate Joker than it was Batman. We always kind of go back and forth on, Pattinson's Bruce was not strong, but that may have been by design. They really just showed you the boogeyman, and he might eventually, in 2 or 3 movies, turn into that playboy when the world, whenever Gotham, it gets to that point.
Yeah, they really didn't show you too many Bruce scenes. Like they're like, oh, you have a meeting with the accountants, but we're not even going to show you that. Let's show you some more Batman shit that happened later in the night. I'm like, thank you. I don't care about the accountant meeting.
I don't want to care unless he's getting close to being found out. I don't care about that.
No,
show me Andy Serkis and him and all this other stuff. Show me all of that. I am down. But don't sit. I don't want to see him mingling about. Catwoman's a thief. And that's the other thing. That is one thing that is underappreciated or have been lost in this entire thing, which is, so Catwoman, outside of Michelle Pfeiffer, has been done relatively dirty.
Yes.
Halle Berry put Catwoman in the dirt so bad they didn't even want to feature her in movies anymore.
Yeah, they just really
and that movie, that movie was just wretched. But watching them add realisms, the things about her, the chemistry that her and Pattinson had. I had someone say, "Oh, well, they had no chemistry." I'm like, "Were you watching the same movie?"
Yeah, they had so much chemistry. It was insane.
It was insane. It was the last time I saw chemistry like that was Michelle Pfeiffer and Michael Keaton.
Yeah,
and you don't get to, even when Anne Hathaway is not, she was Catwoman, but it was not the same appeal to me. And it was just like, I like Anne Hathaway and she played it well, but in the end, no one's going to reach Michelle Pfeiffer in that sense. Now, this is as close as I've seen.
Oh, for sure.
This is as close as I've seen. It will take a lot for me to ever put anyone near Michelle Pfeiffer. It will take forever, but this is as close as it's going to get.
I like the aspect that she didn't have the Zoe Kravitz in this didn't have she didn't suddenly just get like a high tech mask or anything like that. I like that.
Yeah,
she just had like this very easy to do. Cosplayers are going to thank her so much for that.
Costume, yeah,
right. It's like the easiest costume to do for the movie.
Oh, they're already stitching. They're probably sold out of material already. Like this, and just like you're going to see a lot. I'm going to Comic-Con. I'll tell you right now, you're going to see a lot of Riddler outfits.
Oh, absolutely.
You're going to see a lot of that. You're going to see, that's going to be number one for sure. The new Batman, the new bat suit is I always had a problem with people who liked Ben Affleck as Batman, but Batman at that time was jacked. Huge. And this is not your jacked Batman. This is Batman just walking into, and Matt Reeves said, this is basically 2 years. It's been 2 years. So he's encountered the Joker. Who's a serial killer. Like but they didn't go on that. They went with Batman who's still figuring shit out.
Yeah, there was the scene where he runs. One of my favorite, this is a new Batman scene, thing. So that happened was later on in the movie when he was getting away from the police and he runs to the top of the roof and he just stops out of a fear. I was like, oh, good. You're going to show that he actually has a fear of heights, because every other
Exactly.
Batman in the history is like, oh, no, I'm fine. I'm like, no one's fine at sitting up that high.
Exactly.
Oh, that's insanity.
And then watching him crash and burn. It wasn't some graceful landing.
No.
Like he barely got out and then he crashed and burned and he was messed up. And that is what Batman is. Batman, I feel like they humanized Batman.
Yeah, he got knocked unconscious several times in this movie.
Yeah.
He got knocked out.
He got knocked out. He had to get adrenaline. Like he had to do these things just to keep going. And I think my favorite shot of that entire movie, outside of that hallway scene, was near the end where he lit the flare and the flood, and the way they showed it, everyone kind of followed him out. I said, "Okay, this is incredible."
Yeah, They did everything with the character. I'm like, oh, they're going to show it, especially after he just beat the guy, and the guy was like saying, "I'm vengeance," and he's like, "Oh, I'm doing this wrong." Then he goes for a sacrificial moment, gets electrocuted, goes in the water, lights the flare, gets people out. I was like, and he just shows us like at the end of the movie. Tail end of this 3-hour movie. He's like, also, I could be a hero after being a vigilante for this long.
Exactly.
I'm like, how did you guys wrap it? Like, you wrapped in the entire Nolan arc in one film. Like, that's the whole arc.
That's what I'm saying. That is the thing. That is literally the main idea of all of this. He basically took the entire Nolan arc that we watched happily through 3 movies and did it in such a cinematic, such a specific way that I realized, wait, we had to wait 3 movies for Bruce Wayne to figure this out.
Oh yeah.
And they were always wrapped up nicely. But he went through all of this year 2 dealing with God. I am pumped to see how this is going to go in terms of his rogues, because his rogues are psychotic, and how they're going to make these rogues psychotic. And it's insane. Like, the thing is, I don't even know if you can put meta human beings in this universe.
Well, they're saying they don't want to at this point. I feel like, and please tell me if you think of this, that the studio is going, I think they're going to by the 3rd movie. This is my prediction. I think they're going to say they're not going to. Studio's going to push for it. They'll be like, no, 2nd movie, we're not going to. End of the 3rd movie is going to hint at some sort of sci-fi element coming in for the end of the 2nd movie is going to hint at some sort of sci-fi element coming in for the 3rd movie. That's my theory.
Yeah. I would go with that, mostly because if the Flash is going to do what my positive view is, yes, the Flash is going to nuke this entire thing. Yes. Realistically, that's what they should do. They should really nuke this and everything before it that wasn't the Suicide Squad and the new Suicide Squad and Peacemaker. They really should nuke a lot of it. This is their chance to wipe the slate clean. I have been advocating for almost a decade after the Snyderverse movie, the Justice League movie, the Batman vs Superman, all this stuff. I've been advocating for near a decade. Listen, give me a Flashpoint movie. You guys can do this all over again, and people will eat it up. Do a Flashpoint movie, have the Flash, have Barry Allen just completely flatten everything into one thing, and then go from there. Yeah. And because I think the problem with DC has always been, until recently, I would say until the Joker, is that they've been trying to do the Marvel thing backwards. They did the team up movie, and then they were going to do individuals from there. Yeah. The problem is that the only movies the team up movie wasn't great, and then they had all sorts of problems on that movie. And then the individual movies is either Aquaman or Wonder Woman, and then they had to redo the Suicide Squad. Then they redid another Superman, and then the TV stuff. That's why it's so many chefs in the kitchen. And then when they finally say, okay, let's give one chef the recipe to do what he does, and they did that with the Joker and Batman, you see the end results. Realistically, if you look at what Marvel's going through, Marvel has spread out a lot of its universe. It's a real universe, both in streaming and movies. And eventually, they're going to have to blow this up in order for it to not get to collapse under its own weight, which is why the multiverse of madness is important, why those Avenger team-ups are important and whatnot, because it blows it up, and then they cameo it, and then they're back to introducing new people, TV and film. Whereas DC, Flash should come in, it should mess everything up, and they should start from their strongest movies and build from there and somehow, some way, I mean, kind of make it where these people come together for a team up. I don't necessarily know how they would be able to justify, but that could be like the third, like you said, the third movie. They hint at something meta, and somebody or something appears, and that's how you cross it over. I just want them to give me DC for a year.
Well, there's going to be three. Well, yeah, there's going to be 3 Batmans in their universe soon. Hey.
Yep.
Because there's going to be Keaton's Batman's coming back.
Yep.
And then Ben Affleck's Batman is apparently making a cameo in the Flash movie. And then this recent one. So, like, what are you guys planning to do? The Flash movie really does have to do what you're saying. Just like to clean
it
this
has
up.
to. There's no way the Flash movie can be a normal movie. It has to be a universe damaging at minimum / universe ending movie where everything comes together in one way. Like you can't just have things. You realize that you have, Miller and Reeves who got their perspective Joker and Batman. You have James Gunn who genuinely gets Suicide Squad and then had the audacity to turn around and give you Peacemaker and go, wow, this is crazy. So now you have the pieces to do something different. And I think for DC's sake and Warner Brothers' sake, watching them mess this up again. That's why a friend of mine said, I'm like I don't know if you remember watching those Major League movies. And Randy Quaid, the guy who always says, Indians are going to suck. He said that was me because I'm like, oh, they're going to mess this up somehow. It's so easy to get this right. And I don't know how they're going to mess it up. But
if the Flash bombs, right? If the Flash bombs, it doesn't do well. Then that's how do you fix anything past that, right? So that's a lot held up on one movie. That's
what I'm saying. It's right now the Flash bombs in any which way. Now you've got Black Adam and Aquaman within a universe that is not as popular as your 2 best movies you put out in the last, decade.
Yeah,
outside of Wonder Woman. So now, and you made a sequel to Wonder Woman, which was not well received and honestly was not great.
It was
not. So you have Black Adam, Wonder Woman, and Aquaman in this separate bubble that the Flash could have upended completely. But if that movie bombs, there's no reason to. Now you've got to do all this all over again. Now you've got 2 movies that exist in a more successful universe. And then you got 3 movies that exist in another universe that is not being well received in any which way, shape, or form. So the Flash, there's so much on the Flash. The Flash has to either be really good, or if it's going to be not great, it has to at least be meaningful to the overall DCEU.
Yeah, they need to really pull it off on that movie. And the thing is, too, they've got a lot riding on the Batman, right? Because they've got, I think it's 2 spinoffs are coming from the Batman series. Yeah. The Penguin's getting one. I think there's an Arkham Asylum one. And that's a bold claim to do before the Flash comes out, I think. But I don't.
Exactly. And realistically, and they were talking about a Gotham one, but they put that one on hold. But think about it like this. If the Flash bombs, then realistically, no matter what happens with Black Adam and Aquaman, we're probably not going to see any movies that are similar to those anytime soon. And why I say that is because right now, even though the Joker is technically years before, and then you have the Batman, which is going to be a new trilogy. Now, the problem is you got to look at what you have. The Rock has not been doing too great. He's been great in great movies, but he's put up some stinkers, and he's starting to kind of wear on people a little bit.
The Rock and Ryan Reynolds are just such lovable people, but they put out so many bombs.
They put out bombs, and I mean, The Rock's had a couple of bombs in the last couple of years, and Ryan Reynolds at least Ryan Reynolds kind of spaces out his bombs, and then he does like he did the New Guy and Free Guy, and then I was like, oh, that's dope, and makes you forget that he did the Hitman's daughter's wife, whatever the heck it was, and that didn't do too hot. And
R.I.P.D.
R.I.P.D. That was not great. So The Rock is at this point where if Black Adam fails, this isn't great.
I think that's gonna do well. I have a theory that that's gonna do well because it's got a lot that works for it. It's got The Rock clearly on the most amount of steroids there have been, so he's gonna be just big. That'll be able to sell to a lot of bros. And then also you got like Pierce Brosnan as Dr. Dr. Fate, and you've got a lot of things. I think that one's going to do well. I'm more concerned about the Flash, but I think Black Adam's going to. I don't think Black Adam's going to break the bank, and I don't.
No.
60% of Rotten Tomatoes and probably make its money back is where I see.
And realistically, with having Dr. Fate and kind of having a team up aspect of it, it could operate in a way that could be fine, but it would do a lot better if the Flash does well too, because now you have something to grow on. If Aquaman doesn't do well, it's not the end of the world, because realistically, they may make one more Aquaman and then that'll be it.
Yeah.
The Aquaman is like the Hulk in the sense of, you really need him in the team up, but realistically, if you can't, you got to make his villains very, very good. And it looks like, he's going to have a few villains in there that are going to be pretty damn good.
Yeah.
But
Aquaman had the horror aspects too. That's what I liked about it. Like that whole trench scene had horror aspects too. I feel like when they lead into the horror aspects, it's their best bet, which they should start doing more.
They underestimate which is really weird, because from a bankability standpoint, the horror is a bankable thing. Horror is consistently bankable, regardless of genre, regardless of level of gore. It's a bankable thing. It may not be billions of dollars, but it's still something that that if you spend a couple $1 million on it, and you're going to get your investment back, because there's always a place for it. So I think, as many people will sit there and they go, oh, well, I don't really like horror. You really look at these movies and see they've intertwined so many jump scare like moments or dark moments where, like, I know where they got that from, because they know they're trying to appeal to a specific sect of fans, that it works. That's why the Batman was so damn good, because everyone's afraid of the dark. Everybody's afraid of the dark in some way, shape, or form, and nothing scares people more than that somebody's going to jump out of the dark and fuck you up.
Absolutely.
That's just what it is.
And they just really just made this. It really was like a starter horror movie. I feel like I could like show this to people. I'm like, hey, since you like this, would you like to watch a handful of other different horror movies?
Exactly.
There's another horror angle that was mentioned from director Mike Flanagan, who obviously did like House of Bly Manor and a number of those Netflix horror shows, as well as like Doctor Sleep and Oculus.
Yeah.
The guy's knocking them out of the park. He said, and I heard a rumor that he wants to do a Clayface horror movie. Like like Batman's Clayface. I'm like, give him every single cent of money you have. Give him whatever. Honestly,
I genuinely see more of these villain movies wrapped around. I really do. I see it as something different within that Batman universe, because realistically, listen, up to this point, we are Batmaned out. We've had. I mean, we are Batman out. There's nothing wrong with that, but they've given us so many stops and Ben Affleck, and then he quits. And then, I mean, once you gave us Christian Bale, then we didn't get much. Like, it wouldn't be a bad idea to turn these rogue movies and rogues into individual, because some of these guys have really sad backstories. They have sad issues. Like, you're sitting there going, how did they get to this point? And again, it's a new way to look at it. But and between there and the exhaustion with Supermans and stuff like that, DC has an opportunity here. They have an opportunity to fix so much with the Flash movie, but also to keep giving the artist, the people who care about the source material, giving them the ability to create their vision and make it happen, because it suits with money doesn't mean creativity. I know a lot of rich people who can't write their way out of a paper bag or draw anything or even care about anything to that level as they did, and that's what has to happen. DC has to allow the creators to be creative, and you see what happens.
If I owned Warner Brothers and I was going to this, what I would have done is just relaunched as a supervillain universe. That's what I've done. I would have made all the heroes like the villains of the story, and I would just launch that, because I have some villain ideas I would love. Like one of my like ideal. Please, Warner Brothers, you're listening to us, let me write this story. I want to write a story of Sinestro versus Darkseid, and the whole concept is Sinestro's been like locked up from the Justice League, and then he gets out, and they're like, "Well, you can't attack Earth to get the Justice League back because Darkseid wants to attack Earth." He's like, "Whatever, I'll go kill him," and then the whole story is him against dark side, and that's the whole concept. And that's my dream movie to write for.
That's actually dope. Wow, that's that's dope. But that's what I'm saying. It's like you can hear the passion in the pitch for that. You know what I mean? Like, they have to give it to people who care. And honestly, realistically, Warner Brothers needs to do what Disney does. Realistically, all Disney does is cut the check. People don't understand that. They trust Marvel to do what they do, and then Disney will say, okay, can you just tweak this? But for the most part, they let them do what they do. These are their characters they care so much about. If you want, that's why they went out and bought all the characters back and got those back and did all. That's why they, brokered that deal with Sony. And Sony was like, well, the only holdout is Universal because of the Hulk. But realistically, we don't really need a Hulk individual movie anymore. So if I'm Warner Brothers, you watch the Batman and then you watch that universe and you go, you know what? Cut the check. Let's see him do it again. If he does it twice, just give him what he wants. Because you see what they're doing with James Gunn. He's done it twice. Just give him what he wants. So next season, James Gunn is writing all of Peacemaker and directing every episode. That's what you got to do. You want to make money? Trust the creators to make you money while compensating them for how good they are, but also know you're going to make billions. The Batman's $250 million in, and it came out, what, Friday?
Yeah, what's the budget for the Batman, too? It can't be as big because like looking at it visually, even though it's a 3-hour movie and there was like obviously a lot of things, there's not that much of a cast in it really. And there's not too many, you can see there's not as much CGI. I'm obviously there's a bunch of CGI, but like not, but nothing, not just a flat green screen.
Nothing overwhelming where it's like, okay, clearly this is a green screen. Like this, there were green screen shots and stuff like that. But like, if you look at like the Marvel stuff, you see those budgets are huge. Whereas, now, I'm almost positive, I got to look it up. The Batman might have been pretty expensive, I think, actually. I'm not even sure. I thought it was like 150. Actually, 150 is not that bad because the Avengers movie was, they made, what was it, 300 million to
something
do that?
Like that, yeah.
I mean, they made $2-3 billion, but it took 300 million to make. So I think the Batman movie was like 150, maybe 180. And now they're already at 250. Name a DC movie in the last decade that's not a Batman movie that has made that much money that quickly.
No, there isn't. And the thing is, even like with like the Joker is a very impressive one, right? Like what is it, $30 million? I think the budget was. The budget was like low down there. And then did it make $1 billion? Did the Joker make $1 billion in the end?
That's a good question. Let me look that up. Because the thing, and that's the thing, it's this is the other part from a production standpoint that I realized. And I understand why it's like this, but also it's kind of gluttonous in the sense of they spend a lot of money. And there's a lot of movies that you can see that are basically nowhere near the cost of what these movies are, but they're just as good. So like the Joker, I think was like $30 to $50 million, maybe even 55 or 60, something like that. But it made $1.2 billion, something stupid, even if it's a $55 million budget, one point something billion dollars on that, and they did that. That's relatively cheap for a superhero movie.
It's insanely cheap for a superhero movie. There'll never be a Marvel movie that costs that much money. They'll never do it.
Never do it. And that's the thing. The thing is, I get it. They, the budgets. The crazy thing I always tell people about budgets, Avalon produced a lot of decent sized movies, but the math is basically the same, which is you have, the movie can be 55 million, and then you have to add half of that on top of that for marketing. They, Hollywood math. Hollywood math is surreal. The amount of money that goes in and out of these things is out of control. But if you watch it, you look at it, you go, well, they spent X amount of $1 million, it made $2 billion off or something. And you realize that, wow, you're telling me we don't have to spend $300 million to get $1 billion? No, you can spend 30, 40, 50, or 60 and get that if you're willing to let people who are used to not working with a high budget, so to speak,
Yeah.
There's a lot of movies out there that get made for $500,000, but the gluttony of Hollywood math balloons those numbers up to $10-20 million. So I think from a studio standpoint, especially the major level, a lot of them have forgotten that time when they were an indie filmmaker trying to make a short film for like $4 or $5 grand, or trying to make a feature film for, 30, 40 grand. And that seems impossible to them. But I think if they can get back to that point, if they were ever that person, it would be infinitely easier for them to at least understand that feel. I know they'll never get back to that point money-wise, but understand how easy it is to know that you don't have to spend millions upon millions of dollars to make a quality film. You don't make $300 million to make a quality film.
Yeah. And the thing is, too, that with this one didn't feel the grittiness of making a movie not feel as expensive just makes you feel like more grounded into this world, right? Like I just like seeing the realistic like type of places and seeing. Another thing that actually made this more realistic was the amount of diversity that was in this movie. It was like so different from other Batman movies. Like throughout the movie, like, right, even down to like the mayor. Oh, that's where I was going to go with this too. I was going to ask you, as a former politician, how do you feel about each Batman movie has a political aspect to it, but like a truly like actual politics aspect to it? And it's always integral to the story because like it's about building up a city. Coming from a former politician standpoint, was there anything in there that you thought about like, oh, how would you be a politician in Gotham? Well,
realistically, it's a realistic aspect because right now, and it has been for almost I'll say it's always been, but it's been worse over the last decade. Politics is a divisive thing. No matter what the politics. There's always a left and a right. There's always a blue and a red. There are people who are down with how it is or how it was and how it's going to be. And I think adding that divisiveness of politics creates more tension, especially when it's accurate. I mean, throughout that entire storyline, the election, it really played off the fact that right now you could be the most least political person on the planet. But when that election comes around, you're sitting there going like, oh, wow, like this is 100% the most important thing to some people. And I think watching that and kind of it was an exemplary effort to show that because of the politics, because of how divisive it is, because of how big elections have become, both in money and corruption and whatnot. I think it's always a perfect propellant to show that with that divisiveness, what's wrong with the city, what's wrong with Gotham, what's wrong with society is always wrapped around the haves and the have-nots. And I think a lot of politicians represent neither of those sides. And the woman who played the mayor or the mayor-elect,
Real was the character.
Bella Real, was the people's choice, so to speak, to be a different Gotham. And now that storyline of, can she always be that way? Will she always be that way? And that's another story. It's just such a masterclass of writing in the sense of now, as time goes on and progresses, what path is she going to take? Is Gotham going to take hold of her and she's going to become corrupt? Is she going to make it throughout this entire thing? There's just so many aspects of why politics works within Batman, because realistically, the upheaval in Gotham is not that different than the upheaval in some major cities. And the political climate of what's going on today.
I completely agree. And I thought this was an interesting choice. This is the first Batman that's ever called him over white privilege. And I was I noticed it right away. I was like, this is pretty cool that they actually called it. Like, even when Catwoman said to us, like, man, you must be rich to think like that. I was like, this is the first time anyone's ever just
come out in
his face like that. Yeah.
And realistically, watching in the movie theater, there were a bunch of people who clapped.
Yeah.
When she said that. There were a bunch of people who clapped. It was like, wow, laid bare. It's like right there. Like, you clearly were born with a silver spoon in your mouth. Like, it was just, I don't remember Batman. I remember Bruce Wayne maybe, but I've never remember someone saying, Batman, you must be rich because you don't understand this. Watching that really encompassed how she said Batman is connected by vengeance, but disconnected by what he's fighting for.
Yeah. And it was also interesting to watch the first time that I think I've ever seen people disgusted by Batman beating a villain. Did you like near the end when he was beating us? I've never seen another movie where Batman's been overly beating up somebody. Yeah. Or beating up where people are like, oh, you shouldn't do that.
Yeah, like
in this
restrain
world,
yourself.
Like, we like this. Yeah. Like it was the first time I've ever seen that too. So they did like a very like easy way to modernize a movie, very easy way to talk about topics without like standing on a soapbox about it. I'm like, everyone would be like that if they saw him doing this, but
like you saw it and you watched them and, you know, they were like, chill, like, you know, the gratuitous, you could have the gratuitous violence with a real world aspect. Like, yes, the guy was beating the hell, but you know, he overdid it.
Oh yeah.
He overdid it. And now someone's like Commissioner Gordon, he overdid it. That's what happened. And he came in and he said, all right, enough. I get it, but you gotta chill. You're gonna kill this guy.
Yeah.
And I don't remember seeing that moment anywhere. By the way, shout out to Jeffrey Wright. My God.
I was about to say.
Oh man. Commissioner Gordon, listen, I like almost every Commissioner Gordon that's come through. And
Yes.
Jeffrey Wright is phenomenal as an actor, but he really brought a Commissioner Gordon that was not a stereotypical cop, but also a cop in a good way. And changing him to a black man it was like, oh, Commissioner Gordon's white. First of all, if you're worried about race in comic books, you've got worse things going on in your life.
For sure.
Like if that's a thing, then you got problems. But realistically, he was phenomenal. And he was really the beacon of light in that really dark Gotham City PD. And he really showed that. And I think Jeffrey Wright really made himself, at least for me, my Commissioner Gordon. It's like how I feel about, you know, they tried to replace what's his name for J. Jonah Jameson. There's no one else for me. You can try, but there's no one else for me. So I like Jeffrey Wright as Commissioner Gordon. I hope he stays around for it. And I don't even know how good it would go without him, realistically.
Yeah, I thought it was a great Commissioner Gordon story too. Like he just and I like that they didn't show you like, oh, this is how they met. This is why they're friends. They have this. I'm like, I didn't even see that. I'm like, I got it. Batman and Commissioner Gordon, they work together. Like it makes sense. Batman has to like it's a corrupt city. Yeah, I get that. You don't need to go in detail. And it like made sense. And I liked how he vouched for him, and I liked how the other cops like he can't. First time I've ever seen too. The other cops are actually like, oh yeah, he can't actually be here touching evidence.
That's what I'm saying. What about when it was like procedural, like chain of custody, and I go, wow, I don't think I've ever heard a cop even talk to Batman other than Commissioner Gordon, let alone, you know, when they were in the that shot in the room with all the cops and he wakes up and the cop that was a great scene to watch them. He try to grab the cowl off of him and he's ready to fight them all.
Yeah.
And knowing that Commissioner Gordon is the stable one between the unstable Gotham PD and an unstable Batman. And I love the fact that I didn't have to see, like you said, the origin story of the relationship. Just like I didn't have to see the origin story of his parents dying. We get it.
No.
But instead, they turned it on its head and they just dropped us right into year one, year two. They dropped us into like that long Halloween. They dropped us into Ego. Like it was amazing. And realistically, just thinking about this, it's hard for me to imagine they were going to do this with Ben Affleck. I would have never been sold.
No, it would have been weird, right? Because he's like, I'm like, well, they would have to do a completely different story. You can't do a year two Batman story with Ben Affleck because I'm like, he's way older. It would have been really weird. And even an older Batman story, I would have been like, all right, like, okay, we've done it. It's cool. I couldn't. I wouldn't have been. The story wouldn't have been anywhere near where it was, but it was just a phenomenal story. It was something I was proud to watch. It is easily, to me, the best DC movie ever. And it's I had a lot of people come at me, but I had a lot of people who heard me and was like, yeah, that makes sense. And I'm saying it's the best, most comic book accurate Batman I've ever seen. And one of the things that kind of cemented it was 45 minutes into the movie. And this is grown man to my right. And I just hear them go, that's my Batman. That is my Batman. And then the guy, like, I said it now, but I heard him say, he's like, I've waited my entire life for this Batman. And I'm like, that's it. That's what it's about. Everyone's gotten their Batman. I hope they get Superman right one day.
and stop changing them all over the place. But this is fantastic. They have a lot to build on, but it all comes back down to, please, I don't know what the Flash is going to be, but I hope it doesn't bomb, and I hope it's a universe destroying, universe building moment.
Yeah, and I hope they just. I would almost like if they're like, hey, these worlds all exist, but we're going to keep them separate and we can go over whatever we want. I'm like, good.
Something
like
something
that.
like
That's
that.
Fine. Keep it like
Acknowledge
that.
the difference. Something like that.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, just saying, okay, Michael Keaton, all these people, boom, they're in. Awesome. They're here. All right. Some of these universes are destroyed. But you know what? I would love that. That would be a win. Even if the movie wasn't great, it would still be a win if they did that. But it's going to be one or the other. It's going to be the movie's going to be great, but it's not going to answer or destroy any questions. Or the movie's going to destroy and answer questions, but the movie might bomb, which would screw everybody that comes after it. Because I don't even know what's on the slate for them right now.
I think they've got 4 movies coming out this year.
Yeah, let's see. We got Black Adam.
Yeah.
Batman.
That just came out.
Aquaman. And then is there one more?
The Flash. So Black Adam, Aquaman, The Flash.
And then I don't think anything else after that.
No, that's it, right?
Yeah, I don't see anything else on their slate. So I think my theory of the importance of The Flash is real. They're waiting to see how good this movie goes. If it goes well, like, I'm not going to lie to you, I wouldn't be surprised if in deadline in the next couple of weeks we don't see, because when's The Flash supposed to come out?
Isn't it coming? It's coming out like in not July. I think Aquaman comes in July. Isn't The Flash next up?
Yeah, Flash is technically next up. I promise, because I know they've done before. I know the circumstances were different. I wouldn't be surprised if you heard them doing reshoots on some stuff. I would not be surprised. Would not be surprised if DC decided we got to add some stuff, or we got to reshoot some stuff. Like the Batman is already I think that's their 4th highest grossing film of 2022. It's the 4th highest grossing film of 2022, and it's easily going to surpass some of their best stuff. So this is going to be interesting. The Flash, they didn't slate anything already. The Flash is more important than people let on. Flash bombs, it'll be one more Aquaman and Black Adam. They're gonna have to hope that The Rock, put something together with that team up that he's got and kind of build from there. But the Flash is of super importance. Yeah. I would liken it to say that the Flash is as important as Multiverse of Madness. The difference is the Multiverse of Madness is only existing to basically bring in the Fox properties that the Disney acquired in some which way, shape, or form.
Yeah, they're already set. Marvel's already set, so they don't have to worry about that.
Yeah. So even if the multiverse went bad, which realistically it's got too many cameos, there are too many possibilities. Just hearing Patrick Stewart's voice on the trailer made me go, there's no way that this movie's going to be insane.
Oh, it'll make $1 billion too. That'll be absolutely fine. The Flash comes out in November, so November 4th.
100%.
Yeah, a few weeks before Aquaman. A few weeks before Aquaman is such a choice.
If that movie bombs and it goes to Aquaman and Aquaman's again, either they're going to be reshoots between now and then, or they're going to shift something forward, because that is a really tight. Wow, that is a tight window.
It's really close. Yeah, November 4th is The Flash, and then you got Aquaman December 16th.
Ooh, wow, yeah. Wow. That's a month, if that. Oh, that's...
Yeah, and so they'll be in theaters at the same time. And Black Adam comes out on July the 29th.
All right, so they're basically giving The Rock a lot of leeway because technically with Shazam and The Rock, it could be fine, but The Flash it's
really close.
That is really, really
close.
Yeah, that's really, really close. I can't imagine it staying that way, or it's either they move something forward or like further down the line, or they're doing reshoots on The Flash. It's got to be one.
Yeah, I don't own the company, but I definitely think they should move the Flash sooner. Is what
Yeah,
I would say.
either move it up or move Aquaman into next year.
Yeah, either one or the other. I just think they should
Yeah,
move the Flash, like maybe even closer to Black Adam.
yeah. Honestly,
Yeah,
I mean, I feel like that would be that would be it. Being closer to Black Adam is not as bad as it being close to Aquaman.
yeah,
That's not giving Jason Momoa or Aquaman a chance, really, because that movie stinks. That Flash movie blows, and Aquaman's going to get kicked hard. Oh man,
yeah. We need yeah, and the I don't know why the concept of the idea they did of the 4 trailers all together. I'm like, all right, you guys are this bold.
yeah,
Especially with the Batman in these trailers. I'm like, you don't want to put the Batman beside these movies, guys. I'm like, I wouldn't do that. Like,
yeah,
it's a different tone entirely than these 3 other movies. I think move it away.
Like like I said, I feel like someone's gonna be, hey guys, look, the Batman's doing way like we knew it was gonna do great. This is doing way better than we thought. They might get an Oscar nod. We gotta do something else. And I promise you, I'll be so surprised if it's not moved. Aquaman gets moved, Flash gets moved, both of them in either direction, or the Flash gets some serious reshoots really quickly.
Let's talk Oscars, actually. What do you think it's going to get nominated for? Because I think sound design for sure. Score, absolutely.
Sound design, cinematography is up there.
Yeah. I think it'll win for sound. And I think it'll probably win for, cinematography. Who knows what happens. But I think it'll win for sound.
And legitimately, man, if I had to choose an actor to get an Oscar, if they don't even look at Paul Dano for that performance, I'll be really, really.
I don't think they're going to give it to a guy that's wearing a mask most of the movie, though. And I agree with you, but they're like that. I don't think they would.
It's, oh man,
we're forgetting makeup, by the way, too.
Oh, makeup design. Yeah, makeup. I mean, just with Colin Farrell and him being the Penguin, and
you got to give it to him. You got to give it.
Just the stuff that they did. The set design, art direction, they got to walk away with the less sexy awards.
Yes,
they have to, because I mean, man, it's just so many of those people are unsung heroes.
Mm-hmm.
They need to get to do, because they turned Gotham into Gotham. They turned it was just phenomenal. The lighting, everything. If they go empty-handed and no one gets nominated, that's a legit travesty.
That'd be insane. I think it should get an adapted screenplay too. I don't see how it couldn't. I think that was like a very well. Like, I don't understand how. At least a nomination. I just don't understand how that would be, because Logan was.
Yeah,
so I don't
Logan
see how
was.
This wouldn't be.
Yeah, I feel like, because it really is. It's more year one and long Halloween.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, it is an adapted screenplay. I just can't. It's crazy that this was supposed to be in a DCEU. It was supposed to be in a DCEU as with Ben Affleck. I can't get over that. I can't get over how they almost messed this up permanently.
Oh, it would have been a completely different movie, because Ben Affleck was going to direct it, which would have been a different movie. I think he was supposed to fight Deathstroke in the movie. So they wouldn't have, we wouldn't even be having this. It'd be like because they were supposed to make a Joker and Harley movie in the DCEU, and they scrapped that after the Joker did well, I think.
Yeah,
that's when they scrapped it.
And then they were supposed to do they did the Birds of Prey movie, and they to kind of placate the Harley Quinn craze, and then that movie did meh. All right. Editing. They should definitely get something for editing.
It should get something for editing.
It should get
Absolutely.
it should definitely get something for.
I'll just say it, Best Picture. I think it should get a nomination for Best Picture.
I would agree. I was saying that about Logan, and this is better than Logan. So
yes.
I mean, this is saying a lot. And they said that, Batman's supposed to launch a shared universe. Man, that's what I keep coming back to it. The Flash has to be seismically important. If Batman is the launch of a shared universe, then the Flash has to be seismically important, or it has to be the end of every other. It has to be the end of everything else. It has to be Aquaman's gone, there is no more Wonder Woman, and Black Adam's going to be in its own bubble. Like,
I think they're going to keep. My assumption is they'll get rid of Superman and Affleck Batman, and I think here's my assumption. I think they're going to get rid of Affleck Batman, Superman, keep Wonder Woman, keep Aquaman, and then have the other Joker's not even in this conversation. It won't be in this conversation. They won't even bring that up. I don't think they won't even reference that. And then they'll keep. They'll have Pattinson's. I don't even know if they're going to make it like a reference to his Batman, because that's a lot of Batman in one movie.
Yeah, it is, and
three Batmans.
And the thing is that like, I'm thinking of the Flash, and then I'm thinking of what Pattinson and Reeves, which is amazing because they both are so into this. They want to. When I heard Robert Pattinson say he would like to do something with Court of the Owls, all of a sudden I was like, all right, whatever you were going to do beyond this Batman DC, I don't care.
Yeah.
I don't care. Whatever they're going to do in the Flash, it has to matter. Or if it doesn't, then just move on.
Yeah.
Stick with this Batman.
I'm all into the Pattinson world because, like, yeah, Court of Owls, and Reeves says she wants to do Mr. Freeze. I'm like, okay, guys, this is my universe now. This is my corner. I'll take
this
it.
This is it. Like, this is what it is. I at this point I wouldn't even. And I feel like the thing is, as much as that might sound exaggeratory, I think everyone else would be like, wait, you're gonna do Calendar Man, Mr. Freeze, the Joker. You're gonna bring Robin in there, which means I'm almost positive they'll kill that Robin.
Oh, I mean, so.
You're telling people this is what we're gonna do. Oh, by the way, we have Aquaman over here, and everyone's like, who? What? Oh yeah, I don't care. Let's just stick with this Batman universe, and that is why. That is why it's gonna be crazy. It's watching it skyrocket the way it does. They're gonna be forced into a corner, and I just don't want DC to mess this up. I would love DC to get this right for once.
Do you think they're gonna get? Do you think this is gonna inspire other dark aspects in other superhero films or within the genre? Do you think we're gonna get like darker sci-fi in this aspect from this movie?
I would say so. I think what's happening is that the darker aspects, the horror aspects of certain things are creeping into movies more and more, because even though openly they won't admit that, horror sells, those dark aspects are selling points, and you're going to see a lot more of it. I mean, but this is like real. This makes Zack Snyder's version of what was considered the dark look like Pokemon. Like it was, that was not dark. It was just dark colored. This was dark. This was like dark in both psychological issues and the way it was shot, but this is darker than anything Zack Snyder said he was going to do and could done or tried to do.
This is the first superhero movie I've seen, a modern superhero movie I've seen in I don't know how many years, that I had drug dealing. I was like, the mob was dealing drugs. I was like, oh, they have drugs in your universe? They seem to not have that in the MCU. I don't think people smoke cigarettes in the MCU.
I don't think I've seen it.
Or like other play, like or any other world, like this actually had like drug, like they made up a drug for this. Well, I don't know if drops the thing, but like it's that concept. But like they made up a drug and had like drug addicts and had like a drug problem within the movie. I'm like, oh well, they actually showed that. Yeah. I've never seen that within a superhero universe. So,
and that's what I'm saying. They have the opportunity to move forward and have something it's something different. They can do the same thing in terms of, the individual, then team up, blah, blah, blah. But you have something different. This is more real to life. You got cotton candy versus black licorice, essentially. Like, what I mean? Like, you see this is awesome. MCU, awesome. This is great. I've devoted my life to watching these. And then you've got Batman, which is like, this is awesome. Some of this stuff is crazy for a comic book movie, a little gross, but we're here for it. And I think DC could run with this if they're patient. And they don't suddenly see it as it's a money grab when you let the creators go. The moment you put suits involved, it goes bad.
I think that they can really just open this up, and it just gives like comic book fans in general, or just movie fans, like a diversity of like things to look at, right? Because there was a period there where everything kind of looked like, even the Fast and Furious movies, where they're like, oh, these also look like Marvel movies, and like in the Star Trek movie, everything kind of had that Marvel sort of vibe for a while.
And like, this could be the vibe changer.
Yeah, and I'm kind of hoping it is. And not even to like just push away from Marvel, just that we have more stuff. And it makes it easier for guys like us that are like pitching stuff, right? Like not everything has to be like, I hate more than anything else in the universe when I'm reading a review and it says it was missing levity. Jesus Christ. I don't, not every movie needs that. That's such a weird concept. It's like, oh, it was missing levity. I'm like, it didn't want it.
They didn't want it. And when it did, I won't lie to you, the best joke I've heard all year was the thumb drive. Oh my God. Yeah. I was cackling. I'm like, you gotta be kidding me. Just at the moment where Gordon goes, oh my God. And it was like, this is perfect. This is perfect. That's all I need. That was the one laugh I need. Now let's go back to let's go back to being detectives. And this is
and I like I just love their friendship. Like when he punched him too, he's like, I wish you would have held your punch. It's like, I did.
I did.
That's it. It was sorry. Nothing. Like, they just went back to it.
He's like, no, I did. You're welcome.
Yeah. Just actually knocks him down. All right. Well, we've covered a lot of Batman here, but before I let you go, where can we find you online? I know where to find you, but I just would like you to tell everyone else where to find you.
So you can find me at, on Instagram at codename_Leon. Also on Twitter, same name. My website is kevinlmartin.com. You see a lot of the stuff from the production company, my photography, etc. You'll see a lot more stuff come up. It's going to be a very busy year, hopefully with you, Joel. And
yep.
And that's where you can find me on all that social media stuff.
Yeah, and for me, you can find me at West Coast Strange. And like I told my previous podcast, I will be doing more podcasts here for Kevin's network, and I'm excited to be doing some more. I've got an upcoming episode for the movie Slither, which I'm really excited to get into, getting some weird James Gunn horror B vibes in. So. Kevin, thank you so much for coming on for this special Batman episode. That is horror. We dove into it. Warner Brothers heard us talking, and I think they're going to have to hire us to take over the universe when Flash possibly fails, and we have to save it.
I hope they do. I mean, it'll save them a whole bunch of money for people who care about the product, and so I'm thankful that you had me on, and Warner Brothers hire us immediately.
100%. I'm going to count this as like a special episode. What I want to do is like maybe in the future we can do some more of these special episodes, because there's movies that have horror aspects that aren't quite horror, and I'd love to hear your insight on them. But just in general, I will definitely be talking to you in the future.
Absolutely. I'm 100% down.
All right. Well, everyone, we'll talk to you later. This was another episode of No Stranger to Horror. These episodes are produced by Mick Narciso, and they are for the Kevin L. Martin Network.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you, everyone. And I will speak to you all soon.